if they're not offering on this property, what is stopping them? Or what did they like more about other properties? Agents better understand how much angst the seller has after a showing happens. And they're like, was this the one? Is this the one? And then nothing happens.
I also thought I knew really well what I was worth, and I did get a lowball.
How did you feel when you got the offer that was the lowball? Were you like mad about it?
I turned it down.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds. You're having good audio.
Welcome back to the Tom Storey Show. This week's guest is one of my favorite people in the real estate industry. I would dare to say a bit of a celebrity in the East End of Toronto, especially in the beaches, or is it the beach? I'm not sure. We'll find out in today's episode. Shea Warrington has joined us. Shay, how long have I been bugging you to maybe come on this show? 2 years?
Yeah, a couple years.
Finally said yes, and we appreciate it. First of all, welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. My stomach's a little upside down. I've never been on a podcast, but you've confirmed if I do a big burp, you'll take it out. So I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, right, Steve? We'll take it out? Okay.
Sure.
Well, Shay, why don't you give our audience a bit of a background now? You specialize in the beaches. You do a massive market share in the area. You're a great realtor and overall really good person. And that's actually one of the things I want to say actually before I let you talk is the cool thing that I've noticed, Steve, and you probably noticed this too, all the people that run really successful businesses, you'd think they'd be the people that hide everything and don't talk about anything, but they're the most willing to share exactly what they're doing. So Shay, I just wanted to throw that out there before we got started.
Thank you.
Well,
You're going to make me cry on the podcast.
Yeah. Our first cry on the podcast.
He makes me cry every time, but I wait until we stop recording and then I cry for 15 minutes and then I edit the podcast.
No one's cried on the podcast? You guys haven't made anyone cry? Steve hasn't made anyone cry?
Probably maybe once we're done recording, they've thought about crying, but I don't think any live cries on the podcast. But Shay, for the people that haven't, driven around the beaches and seen your signs everywhere, give us a bit of a background on, how long in the industry, kind of why you're focused on this area, and then we'll get into specifics.
Okay. My background, I've been a real estate agent for 15 years, and my background before that was marketing, communications, publicity in TV and film. And I was always really obsessed with real estate. My mom was a real estate agent after her career as a principal and a teacher. And back in the day when we had these little authenticators that had just pressed a button, I used to get her authenticator and go on the MLS. Probably totally illegal. So I was always obsessed with real estate. And 15 years ago, I just kind of decided that I should explore it. So I think that it was kind of a natural transition. I've lived in the beach pretty much my whole life. I have left twice to two different areas and always came back. And I've just been blessed to be able to work right here where I live. And occasionally I'll go to the West End or,
Sure.
A referral will take me somewhere. But I feel really lucky that I can almost walk to work.
Do you know Nathan Dart? Shay, have you ever met Nathan?
I don't think so.
Okay, we've had him on the show before. He's an American. He's behind like Final Offer and runs a big team out there in the States. But I had cocktails with him last summer at Mira Mira.
Okay.
And then, so we were on the patio and then I was like, let's just go walk like down by the beach. And so imagine so he's an American. He's visited Toronto many, many times for conferences and stuff. And we're like walking and it's like this beautiful summer night. He's like, what is this? He's like, why does nobody talk about this? This is so nice. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, why has no one in Toronto ever told me about the beaches? He had no idea about it as someone. I feel like there's people that live in Toronto that don't even fully recognize how secret this little pocket is that people live in. I mean, home prices are expensive because of it, but people don't really talk about it. Why is that?
No, 100% I agree with you. My daughter studied at McGill. She has a boyfriend and he came down to the beach and we were literally walking down the boardwalk to go watch my other daughter play beach volleyball with an Olympian in this little fun tournament on the water. And we were walking along the boardwalk and I'll never forget it. He stopped and was just looking around. And I said, have you never been here before to the beach? Like, he lived in Mississauga. And he's like, no. And he was completely mystified. Same effect that you're talking about, because we are this special little lakeside community in a big city. And ironically, we're not as small as you think. I think in some ways, because we do have basically 4 or 5 schools that serve this community that is kind of a small community, yet there's different facets or pockets within the beach. But I would agree. There's not very many places you can live and, go for a paddleboard at 7 a.m., grab yourself a coffee and be downtown Toronto in half an hour.
I mean, Steve, you've been here before. Did you know this existed before you came to Toronto and saw the beaches?
I haven't seen the beaches.
Have you not seen the beach? You've seen the area, but it was the winter.
I don't
so you haven't
think they
actually
would
been
let
down.
him in. Like, there's that security thing that goes on, and I bet they saw him coming.
To be perfectly frank, most times I've been in Toronto, it's winter, it's dark early,
And we're in Vaughan.
And there's cocktails involved. So yeah. And yeah, we're in Vaughan. We're not even in Toronto. So.
You're not in Toronto at all. Shay, you recently sold your own house. And right now, as of us recording this, all 3 of us have many listings on the market that we're representing sellers in this very... Oh, Steve,
me,
you
sold them all.
You actually...
Sold them all.
you sold...
Sorry.
Oh, congrats,
Sold them
Steve.
all.
Finally.
Oh,
finally sold
I barely
them.
have any either.
Because you're... Okay,
Like,
fine.
speak for
I have
yourself over
active
there,
listings. But you kind of
Oh,
forget
sorry,
because...
there's another offer. Do you have an offer too, Steve? Yeah, just one sec.
Yeah, wait, let me check my 4 more offers there. I only have 3 listings and I got 17 offers over here. You're muted, Tom.
Yeah.
He got so angry. He's like, wait a
him.
minute, if they're gonna give me so much crap, I'm gonna mute myself.
Can you guys hear me now?
Now we
Yes.
can. We don't want to, but we can.
I didn't touch mute. I think it just shut me off there. It didn't want me to talk. But so Shay, you've just recently sold your own property. And what I was trying to get at, but I've lost total focus now, is selling other people's homes. It's our business. It's what we do for a living. We kind of just think it's this normal thing. And you kind of forget how like stressful showings are and all this stuff. Going through that yourself, did you pick anything up through that experience? Being like, oh, this is something I can apply to my own clients? Or what was that like, selling your own property?
Well, what was kind of interesting is that, I mean, I guess technically we've never really been supposed to sell our own houses because our insurance doesn't apply.
Right.
So, which I've done it many times before, but this time I did put it in my broker's name.
Right.
But I did make myself available if anyone didn't have a realtor and wanted to see my house.
Right.
So I would open the door and show them my house and tell them, like, I tell them as soon as they came in, this is actually my home. I'm going to show it to you. If you want to buy it, I can't help you. I'm going to put you on to another agent. But obviously, I think the best person to sell my home is me.
Right.
So it worked. The 2 people that offered saw the house with me, actually. And I think that probably, if I'm going to toot my own horn, one of my strengths is I try to really put myself in a buyer or a seller's shoes. Whenever I'm dealing with any transaction. It's not really a transaction to me. It's about like a really intimate thing, people's homes. And so I think it was actually really easy and natural to show my own house because I just kind of did what I would normally do.
But Shay, if you say that, now sellers are going to think that they should stay home for showings. And that's probably not a good idea.
Oh, no, that's a really bad idea. No, you're not allowed to do that. It's because I'm a realtor that I was allowed to do it. And case in point, is as soon as someone wanted to talk about negotiating or any of that stuff, I put it over to someone else.
Did you find at all, though, that you were getting more emotionally invested in your own house selling versus a client's property just because it's your house? And if they give you feedback and say, we didn't like this or this, you're like, well, screw you. I made that look really nice. Like, did you find yourself falling into that at all?
No, not really. I actually, with both of the people that I showed my house, I encouraged them to let me take them to another house that was on the market. That was
Smart.
a similar price point. And one of them refused to even go and said, no, I don't want to see that house. We're not going to go. The other person, we did go. And within 5 minutes of being in the house, like we hadn't even gone to the second floor, he turned to me and said, I don't want this house. I want your house. Let's go.
Interesting.
So no, I always, if someone calls me on one of my listings, I'll always tell them about competition.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I noticed, Shay, is when you do your listing videos, which are awesome, by the way, the thing you always start with actually is the school district. Like you always, in the first 5 seconds of your video, you're like, this is in this school district or this school district. And I'm noticing this now with all my clients that are selling their condos. You know, they have one kid or maybe pregnant with their second, and they're all coming to the East End, is that the catchment zone is super, super important.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you're both parents. I have 4 kids, and there's no denying that our life becomes about our children. Mm-hmm. So I think that school and family and part of the beach lifestyle, I think very much involves children and strollers and dogs and schools. So I think that is why a lot of people come here.
We can't all put our kids through private school like Steve over there, money bags on the West Coast.
Oh, yeah, right? No. I don't believe in private school.
Oh, no, it's a thing. It's real.
Well, Shay, let's talk about the market. And I think we can all kind of share our experiences of what's going on right now. And Shay, you might be the only realtor I know that's maybe having your best year ever. Everyone else I'm talking to is like, I'm down 50%. And Steve's whining to me every single week. He's, apparently sold some stuff recently. But
I did.
How are you finding ground level right now? The conversations with sellers are not easy because the expectations may be here and the pricing is probably more realistically here. But you're finding ways to get it done right now. What are you seeing ground level wise in the market today?
And I think ground level, the main thing I'm seeing is inconsistency. There's lots of, we know prices are down, and I've always been super, super transparent. And probably whenever I give someone a value, I will always lean conservative. I'd rather be accurate. I'd actually always rather give a worst case scenario and then try to blow it out of the water. So that they're making a decision based on the worst case scenario. So I actually had a conversation last night with a couple, and I had to give them the bad news that their house is definitely worth 120 less than they paid, and that I think their best route is to rent it out.
Right.
So I always try to be honest. But as far as inconsistency goes, I sold a townhouse 2 weeks ago and had 9 offers, and I did underprice it, and it went way over my expectation. So I think that we're in an interesting market. We're in a buyer's market, but it's still really, really important to look at 3 components as far as I'm concerned, which is strategy and presentation and your product. And right now, more than ever, I've always been big on strategy. When someone has me into their home afterwards, after doing my research, I'll give them a price, or I'll give them a value. And I don't know if you both find the same thing. Everybody's like, what are we going to price it at? What are we going to price it at? It's like their favorite thing to ask. And I always say, I don't know. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about what the value is, and then how we get there totally depends if we're listing next week, next month, or next season. So that's always how I approach things. Let's talk about what you're worth, not about how we're going to get to the end goal until we know when that's actually going to happen.
It's a really good approach to it.
I think right now, especially, it's changing daily.
I know.
It seemed like for 5 minutes, people weren't underpricing, but then it went back to the underpricing and the offer dates, and it is still working with the right product. So did I answer your question fully?
Yeah, you did a great job answering the question. Steve, are you finding any A few episodes ago, Steve mentioned that his days are tough now because he just delivers bad news. And the comment section roasted him a bit, being like, "You're so lucky you're a realtor. Imagine you were like a nurse delivering bad news."
I read that.
Yeah.
I read that comment.
Well, I don't.
I like how Steve
wrote-
responds to
Tom
some of
wrote
them.
that comment.
Yeah, I did not write that comment. I should. I just thought like we're a real estate podcast, so we're going to talk about real estate. In no time ever have we ever said that our job is harder than other professions. It's just this is what we're experiencing right now. But Steve, are you now finding more sellers going like, all right, fine, kind of. I don't love it, but this is what we're going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So June was our best month so far on the team of the year for number of transactions. And I'm telling people that I'm like,
You did one?
Yeah, it's two. Thanks, Tom. No, we did okay. It's not a great June, by the way, still, but you know what? We're managing to put deals together. And so I'm telling people like, hey, there's stuff moving. And the seller's mind immediately goes to, am I now going to get that price that I wanted? And that's not the case at all. 2 of the listings that we sold last month went into multiple offers after very sizable price reductions. Very sizable price reductions.
Mm-hmm.
And were they holding, Steve? Like, was there an offer date?
No, we didn't do
or
offer
with the
date.
price reduction, it generated multiples.
Correct. Yeah. So actually, I believe both of them we cancel relisted. So I don't know how you guys, but that refreshes our days on market.
Same idea.
Here.
Yeah.
So we cancel relisted because both were on the market for 35 to 60 days, something like that. And then it was like, okay, well, this isn't working. Both sellers were quite realistic. They just said, okay, well, let's do it. Let's do what it takes. They probably both went lower than I had recommended originally as well. And then, they went into multiple offers. They sold basically slightly over the new asking price, which is still a pretty low number in comparison to where they were before. But I just feel like now the sellers that we've had sell within the last month have come to the market in the last 2 or 3. So they understood what was going on. I feel like the people here in the Lower Mainland that got caught were the people that came on in January. And they felt like we had that rush in like late October. November was busy. December was pretty good. And then we were like, okay, well, what's this new year going to have for us? And those people got stuck with information where they thought that this was actually going to be a pretty good market. And now, thankfully, those are sold as well. But it took them 3, 4, 5 months to come around to the fact that they weren't going to be getting that price. So we
I
have
don't know
had
if you
some
found
success
this,
there.
but I find that some of those people, when they don't listen in the first place, they actually get less than they would have if they'd listened to the strategy initially.
Totally.
One I can think of here.
Yeah, one I can think of. They were more than 6 figures higher than where we had recommended, and really that was generous. That probably still would have been a 30 to 60 day sale, even at the price that we originally pitched to them. And then once they got to that price, they ended up having to go down more than another 6 figures after that because the market had cooled so much. Like there was literally one sale this year in their neighborhood with 36 active listings. That's a tough go. And it took them, it literally took them 6 months to come around to what was going on. But we're seeing that now quite a bit. We are starting to see people go, okay, the ones that want to move are then reducing the price.
You didn't get into real estate to become a web developer, but a great website is a must. And sellers, well, they want their listings to shine. RealtyNinja.com builds affordable, beautiful, mobile-friendly real estate websites with lead capture and SEO. And there is no tech skills required. Realty Ninja will migrate your content, handle domain changes, and set up as free during your unlimited trial with no credit card required. I've been using Realty Ninja since 2012. Try Realty Ninja right now for free and sign up using our link, realtyninja.com/Tom, and you will save 20% off your entire first year when you launch.
And I'm starting to, I guess I've always sort of been like this, but I'm not going to take a listing if we're not aligned on price. I actually turned something down a week or so ago because when they told me their expectation, I said, I don't think I can achieve that. I don't think it's realistic. So how does that work for you? Will you take a listing if they are off by 6 digits?
Generally, the part I think I struggle with most is the fact that we have the conversation about if this doesn't happen for you at this price within this much time, we need to reduce, or we need to get here, or like something has to change. And that's the conversation that most often gets lost. Because my hard spiel is, listen, 21 to 28 days, you don't have serious offers, serious showings, you're overpriced, period. There's just no getting around it. The marketing is on point. I guarantee that. So if that's the case, when 21, 28 days later comes around and they don't reduce, and I said, remember that conversation we had? And they're like, well, yeah, we're still not doing it. So that's the point, right? Now, actually at this point now, I wish I had taken 3, 4, 5 of those previous listings from earlier this year that I lost to somebody else because they're still sitting on the market. But thankfully, I know Tom doesn't have this problem. I'm pretty much out of listings at the moment. So I would actually love to have some overpriced listings, because then here's the kind of skill that I see. The skill is, I know this person wants more, and you can't blame them for that. Everybody wants. I want more for my house. Everybody does. The buyer wants to pay less. Cool. But then who is the agent they hire that can help them understand and get to that point in order to get them on to their next point in life? That's really the skill. The skill is not to beat you up on price. It's to say, guys, listen, this is how it works. I've had many people reach out. I know Tom was texting me the other day about people reaching out who maybe you lost the listing a while ago and they went with somebody else and it didn't work. The number one complaint I get there is the communication was terrible. Like, they didn't tell me what was happening. They didn't encourage me to even reduce my price. They didn't tell me anything. Because what do we do as agents when we know that there's no activity? After the 6th week of phoning the person going, guys, you got to get your price down, got to get your price down. You can't just phone and say, got to get your price down. You have to show them why they have to get their price down.
But sometimes too, like I've noticed this, and Steve, that example that you brought up, Shay, this was a listing that I didn't get in February because they didn't like my price, and it just expired, and they just emailed me yesterday asking if I'd be willing to take it on now. And I said, yeah, like, but unfortunately the price I gave you then is actually like lower now. But they're never, like, you can't leave it up to the imagination. They'll never know the difference unless they go through it. Mm-hmm. Right. So like, it's really difficult. And it's to go back to actually answering the question, Shay, is like, would you take a listing that's overpriced? And I guess the simple answer is, like, if they have motivation that they have to sell, yeah, probably. Because there's real motivation. But if it's like, hey, this is my 4th property and it's tenanted, and if I can get this price, like, I don't think this is the market to give it a try.
No, it's not an experimenting market.
No, if you want to sell, do it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't need to sell, you really shouldn't be on the market.
Speaking of needing to sell, I want to go back to you. So you're talking about selling your own place recently. Mm-hmm. I want to get maybe an answer from both of you guys on this. What's one thing you learned from selling your own property? I mean, maybe you guys have done this enough where you've learned it on previous properties. So maybe even think back to your first place you ever sold. But what did you learn through the process that you didn't really internalize from a client, like from helping clients do it? Because I have some very significant ones in my mind where I couldn't have internalized exactly what that meant until I did sell my own property and I had the experience for myself, even though I help 100 people a year do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything, Shay?
It's a good question.
I can start if you want.
Okay.
My biggest thing was showing feedback, because especially now in a slower market, I mean, listen, if you get one showing every week, after the showing's done, you're texting your realtor like, what'd they think?
Yeah.
It's like, well, hold on. They're actually showing 6 properties today. Yours was number 2. And if I call them, they're in the 3rd one right now. Like, give it a sec. I'll call them. Like, we don't have to call them the minute after it ends. Yeah. But then for the condo stuff that a lot of stuff that we're listing, it's like,
so you were doing feedback. That with your house, Tom? You were asking for immediate feedback?
Not immediate, but I was trying to get my own feedback on my own house because I was the realtor on my own house, and I'm calling people. And they're like, they don't really give you anything. And the thing is, like, no feedback is feedback. And as we all know, if someone's interested in the property, they're going to call us anyways.
But you're anxious for the feedback is what you learned the experience of feeling like they didn't offer, or how did the showing go?
Yes, that's what I was thinking about a lot, is like, we've had all these showings, and my last experience selling my house was a different market. I got 5 offers on the last property that I sold. That was my own house. So it was a little bit different. But the showing feedback was the thought process in my mind. Like, oh, what did they actually think about it? Why did they not offer? And you call most agents, Shay, and they're like, well, they don't really give you an answer. And you could make the argument, maybe they shouldn't give you an answer because it's their client's opinion, and they shouldn't be telling you what their clients are thinking, because that might give something away in a negotiation. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Shay?
There's actually legal precedent for that right now too, which I think is the worst thing in the world for cooperation in the MLS, is not giving feedback. But we structure now our questions. So our questions go out on a touch-based system. So kind of like a showing time system.
It's like Broker Bay for us. Yeah.
Similar. And then, so what agents don't know is that they can go in and they can adjust those questions. So there's standard questions, and everybody sends out what did you rate it out of 5? What did you, all these stupid things. But we've adjusted them now. So they're very specific questions, like, if they're not offering on this property, what is stopping them? Or what did they like more about other properties? Because, like, you're right. One of the things that I wrote down here was feedback, Tom. And I think it's agents that are listening to this better understand how much angst the seller has after a showing happens. And they're like, was this the one? Is this the one? And then nothing happens.
My biggest pet peeve is actually when you ask for feedback, and they do get an automated thing from us too that says, what do you think of the price? Are you interested? Are you going to offer? And then other. And I appreciate knowing what the feedback is so that I can relay it to my people. But I do find that I'll always tell clients what our weaknesses is, or what our weaknesses are. So with my own house, I knew what my weaknesses were. And I also thought I knew really well what I was worth. And I did get a lowball, and I turned it down, and I did get hundreds of thousands more than the lowball. And I was pretty bang on.
How did you feel when you got the offer that was the lowball? Were you like mad about it? Were you just happy you got an offer because you could leverage it for another offer? Like, did that emotionally click on anything for your own property?
Well, I guess I appreciated them bringing something forward. Like, that's fair. I just believed really strongly in my value.
Right.
And I actually sent a really nice email to the agent and said, these are all the reasons why I think you're out of line. I happen to know their house. I happen to know that the ratio between the two houses was pretty small, that they wanted to double their lot size and double their house, but not pay for it. So I tried to be delicate, or not delicate. I just tried to be honest about why I saw the value in my house, and it was on, the best street in the beach. And
when you know your value, when you know your value, the best feeling in the world, and I just did this yesterday. So I got a guy that showed the listing the first day on the market, like right in the beginning. And now let's call 40 days later, something like that. Can't get into details of the listing, but I get an unannounced offer from that original guy, and it's so low, I'd buy it at that price, right? Like, that's one of those offers. And then my immediate response back was, thank you. I'll present your offer to the seller. I just wanted to let you know that we have an accepted offer, and subject removal is this day. And he's just like, what, you've already got an offer? And obviously we can't share the price, but he's like, is it much above this offer? And it's like, yeah, it's well above that offer. So good luck to you. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's such a good feeling to be like, no, I knew my value. It did take us longer these days. It's not 4 or 5 days anymore. It might be 35 days on market to get the property. But it's nice to know that when you're secure in knowing your value, it makes your life a whole lot easier, because then you can guide your clients through. And in this case, your client was you. So that.
Well, the thing that's interesting right now too is, what is a comp? Traditionally 3 months is what an appraiser and what a realtor uses. But in this market, a true comp is kind of like yesterday.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing that I'm finding really, really interesting right now is to put a value on something. And of course, we have sellers that are like, well, what about that house?
Yeah.
So I actually really like to say to an agent who gives me a really bad offer, like, well, like, are we even close? I'm like, you're not even on the right planet. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
But
But also you can have then the other side of it where, like I had a listing. I want to say one of our last listings we sold last month. There was another comp in the building, and right as I'm listing the property, I see the notes come up. Oh, accepted offer, subject removal this day for that other one. So I was like, great. We're literally hitting the market the day after their subject removal. So their property registers, and we list for, I think it was like $200 under their sale price, because my seller's like, let's just get it gone. 35 days later, we're looking at offers 10% below that.
Well, that's a downward trending condo market, right?
Exactly. But it ended up being basically the accepted offer, the sold 30 days later ended up being about $30,000. Like, it was a difference of $1,000 a day in a pretty tough condo market. So you're right. Like, what are the comparables right now? Because am I looking now at that one, say it was 700 versus 670. Now, do I have to do the calculation at $1,000 a day another 30 days later? No. Every seller is now going to come up at 669 or something like that, or they're probably going to come up at 699. Let's be realistic, right? But what is a comp these days? How far are you going back right now, Shay?
well, I sort of pride myself in being on top of the market as far as finding out about showings and offers. And we all know there's always a story behind every sold. And so I like to dig into the story.
Sounds like
and
my
figure
tagline.
out what happened. Yeah. Someone told me yesterday that they hired me because I'm a good storyteller.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of the marketing side of it, though. It is.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're doing. And that's the other thing that I find really interesting in this market is there's the comps. And then for me, part of what I'm really good at is getting people to present their house in a way that will achieve and maximize their goal.
Mhm.
So that's a big part of what I do, Steve, is I go into people's homes and say, okay, let's paint this, let's do this, and I always have been in a position to say, you know what, I'm going to get your money back tenfold. So it's worth spending this money. But again, right now, if someone is faced with potentially losing money, what do you recommend they do?
It's
So
tough.
I was at a house yesterday and I've got to look at the comps and figure out what they're worth. And I think they're worth less than they paid. So I don't think I can justify saying, let's spend $6,000 painting, because I don't know that's going to be fair in this environment.
Yeah. I'm amazed
So-
right now in this environment how hard it is to get sellers to do things to get their place tip top, right? Like
Mhm.
I have one right now where it's like, the carpets are 30 years old, the paint job's 30 years old, and I'm like, guys, we got to spend the $10K, and we gotta do carpets. It's going to be $4,500, not a big place. We got to do paint. It's going to be another $2,500, but you're probably into it for $6,000. And they're just like, nope, it's not happening. So you know what? We're pricing it much more than that lower, much more than that as a result.
Steve, even if you did those two things in that scenario, that probably doesn't even mean that you get your money back. It probably just means that the property sells faster.
Yeah, you can sell.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
that's that. So in a downward trending market, yes, you won't get it back in direct ROI, but you will sell and be on the market for less time. And maybe if the market's trending down, eventually you look back and be like, oh, that made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the reality is you have to do some of those things to get the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like people aren't even going to come through the door if, so I looked at this house last night and thought, oh, if I painted the back of this house, the picture from the back of the backyard is going to look phenomenal. But I'm going to have to see what the cost of that is, because maybe I need to focus somewhere else and spend the money differently, which is a whole new conversation now.
Speaking of, we were talking about comments earlier. There's actually a super intelligent comment. They're super rare. But there was an intelligent comment that was talking about how you can, like if you price your place wrong, or for instance, in this case, if it doesn't show well in the photos, you're disqualifying yourself from showings.
Oh, 100%.
And I was like, oh, that's just a really good way to think about it. Like, yeah, you don't have to do that. I just want to let you know that you're disqualifying yourself from selling because you just don't have what it takes right now. It's not easy. And people I don't think they're internalizing it until they actually go to the marketplace. I want to get back to this real quick because I did learn something in it. You mentioned a storytelling. This is actually one story. If you have a listing presentation with me, you're getting this story. And it has to do with feedback that Tom was talking about earlier, because I was selling my property and man, I found it painful. I couldn't sell. This was my first ever condo. I couldn't sell it for the life of me. And so I went to my agent at the time and I said, listen, I was actually licensed. But I went to my agent and I said, listen, I need to know why these people aren't offering. So you need to phone back all of the agents. And the 3 that we got back out of like this 15 showings, only 3 agents replied. They all said the second bedroom is too small. Well, I was a bachelor, right? So I had a big desk. I had a storage unit in there. It was a small bedroom as well. So that's actually the first time I hired a stager. And the stager came in and we looked at it and we said, okay, this has all got to go. We put in like a single bed. We did the terrible thing with the boxes and the blow up mattress, right? And we put in a little nightstand and we did all that. Hey, I'm from Surrey here. I'm not from downtown. I'm not from the fancy area. Okay. We still do that stuff here and it works to a degree. But we did that and we had we put in a small bed and a small desk rather than this big stupid desk and a big storage unit. And I shit you not, the next person bought the place. We didn't change price. We didn't do anything. I didn't even update the photos of the bedroom. The next person that came in went, oh, okay, this is a big enough second bedroom. And that was it.
I can throw someone in here.
Yeah. Without the feedback, I wouldn't have known that I needed the staging. Right. So these are things that, like, when we're in a listing presentation, there are things we can and can't change. I can't change that you're on a busy street. The only way we can change for busy street is we have to adjust the price. But if they come in and they say, hey, dummy, that, turquoise wall you have looks like hell, we got to paint the turquoise wall, right? That blood red 2004 wall in your living room, we got to change that. And people are like, oh, I really like that color. Okay, cool. You really like it. It's what's stopping your home from selling. And once you get that feedback, so that was my big thing. The other thing I'll leave you with, because I'm just ranting here for no reason. What I also realized is I was selling a property. This was my second property with my wife. And I came home one day and I was like, those last 3 showings, nobody's bringing us an offer. She turns to me and goes, we don't really need to sell. And I was just like, oh, objections are just things people need to say.
Hey, folks, if you're looking for a real estate agent in the city of Toronto, let's face it, you got to call my buddy Tom Storey of the Storey team and Royal LePage Signature in Toronto, Ontario. They're your obvious choice because Tom is not just the co-host of this podcast. No, he is a real life and top producing real estate agent in the city of Toronto. There's nobody out there that knows the condo market better than Tom and his team in downtown, but they do service the entire city of Toronto and any of your residential real estate needs. So if you're looking for an agent, do not hesitate to reach out to Tom, book a call with him using the link down below in the description of this podcast, and let Tom guide you through your real estate journey. And now back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Because we wanted to move. I know we didn't need to sell either, but we wanted to move. So that's that. When she said that to me, that was the one time where I was like, oh, this is just something people have to do, right? It's almost like a 12-step program. Like you just have to get through these next steps in order to eventually get to the spot where you want to move on. So without my wife turning to me and giving me an objection that every seller always gives me, I couldn't internalize it and be like, oh, okay. So now when I get that objection or any objection, I know I'm like, I don't get offended by them anymore where people are like, well, this doesn't work or that doesn't. I'm like, they're just protecting themselves. They just need to get through this. And I just have to say, okay, that's nice. Do you want to move? Oh yeah, we still want to move. Okay, then here's what we got to do it. So I don't know, the idea or the thought of selling your own home as a realtor sounds super easy, but you got to go through all the emotions too, because now it's your place.
Oh, of course. And it's personal.
Super personal.
And you make personal choices. And I think we've all seen that sometimes if you do really personal renovations that only work for your family, you have to understand that they're not necessarily going to speak to other people.
Yeah.
Speaking of making a personal decision, I think it's about time in the podcast that we argue with Steve Shea.
Nice.
Hey,
Steve
this has been going
has
well, I thought.
many theories. Steve, why don't you just tell me what your theory is about local specialist realtors, which is 100% Shay's business, and then let Shay tell you why you're wrong. I think this could be fun.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. Next time we have somebody with a separate theory than you, Tom, I'm going to call you out.
I'm excited for it. Yeah,
I appreciate it. I just think the area specialist is a crock of a marketing scheme, and I don't believe in it to the extent of which the public does. That's it. I just don't think it's as big of a thing. And that's because now Tom wants to bring this up because we're dealing with an area specialist who runs a very good business in a very tight pocket. So let's counter it, and then we can argue, because that's what Tom wants to see us do.
Well, let me ask you a question. So if I've got a buyer who's looking in the beach and you have a pal who's looking in the beach, would you help them look for that house in my neighborhood? Or would you think that I might do a better job for your client? You think you can do equally as good of a job as I can?
In your neighborhood? Absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
We're talking about a buyer in this situation.
I'm working for the buyer and you are the area specialist? Is that what you're saying?
No. So let's just say one of my pals wants to buy in your neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So I could write up the offer, but I think it would be better for them to deal with you because I don't know anything about the neighborhood.
Okay, but what does that have to do with the real estate transaction?
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. If you had a pal who was looking in the beach, you say that there's no value to someone who knows the neighborhood.
No, not no value.
Oh, not value. Less value.
Not
limited value.
Limited. I'm going to say limited benefit because, like, for instance, I have a guy in my area that's on all the bus benches. He's on every single bus bench, absolutely everywhere. A lot of people list with him. Okay. I get it. I understand. It's they see the person all the time, and he knows the areas, and he knows he's got lots of clients in the area. That's great. I don't think working with him in order to buy in that specific pocket is any better than working with me. And because what people do is they view him as the area specialist because his face is on the bus bench everywhere, and he's got 3 or 4 listings when I have none. And as a result, they're like, we're only working with him because he's the area specialist. I think it's a crock because I think I do a better job than he does.
But Steve, you still know that area.
Let me give you... Sorry, you go ahead, Tom.
I'm just saying, like, in this scenario, Steve is still very active in the area, but maybe to the general public, this other person is seen as the area specialist. I think what Shay's saying is, like, if you knew nothing, would it be the same? Is that, am I?
Or what about if so Steve, you have a friend who calls you up tomorrow and is like, oh, I'm looking to move to the beaches in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
But Steve already has this friend who works in Don Mills or York Mills or Mississauga. So would you say, oh, geez, I just talked to this girl. She actually works in the beach, lives in the beach. Maybe you should talk to her. Or would you send them to your pal who doesn't live in the area because you think they can do just as good of a job? That's my question.
That would be a very difficult question because I would want to know the competency of the agent. And let me tell you, so Tom and I, you've been around, you know the difference, first of all, the scope of Tom Storey's network and how much of an amazing guy he is nationwide. And the agents that we could refer to. what are the chances that you refer to someone that's an area specialist in that area, or you could find what may or may not be a better agent that could do just as good of a job? So most of the time, people are going to refer to just the person they know, probably. If somebody said to me, I want to be in this particular area, and I knew an agent as good as you that worked that area, absolutely. But I don't think there is as big of a benefit as the public thinks, because the amount of people that phone and go, okay, well, you're the guy on the bus bench, so I want to use you because you know the area. I think it's just I don't think that that is the case. I think it is a marketing tool that people use. Let me counter the argument. Are you then incapable of selling on the west side?
I can sell on the west side, but it would take me a lot of research, because if someone said to me, like, do they have French at that school? Is there a daycare at that school? Can I walk to the coffee shop? I can find all of that out for sure.
Mhm.
Like I've worked in the Kingsway before, but it's going to take me a long time to do it. And I always look at it like I've had a few people want me to write up an offer up at my cottage, and I'll say no. Like I don't think I'm an expert there. You know, I have a cottage. I know what a septic tank is, and I know the ins and outs, but I don't know the values. I don't know what that place is worth. So could I sell a house in the Kingsway? For sure. Would it take me longer to figure out what it's worth and to know the intricacies? And as we were talking about, the stories behind some of the prices and what's going on. So I don't think I would be as good as someone who is, granted, a good agent, but also an area specialist.
So how far does that area expand? I think that's the real question, right? Because what I get really frustrated with is when people are like, oh, this little, I don't know, name an even tighter pocket than where you might be, right? Like people that are like, oh, this guy sells in that area. It would be nice to think that I only sell properties in Morgan Creek, which is an exclusive area in Surrey. But if I only sold properties there and I had a decent market share, I would sell 4 houses a year. So it wouldn't really work. Right? So I think then people are like, oh, well, he's the Morgan Creek specialist. No, he's not. Like I sold 3 this year. I sold 1. Is he?
So three times more than you?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or let me give you an even tighter example. How about the building specialist? This drives me crazy.
I was just that's the example I was thinking of. There's like a building in the beach where I went in and sold something like $400,000 over the last sale, who actually the last sale was a realtor's own property and they kind of gave it away. But I went in and I did drone photography, and they actually started a little committee to say, if you're selling your condo, you should do these things. You should follow this plan, because they, of course, want to protect their values. And in that case, am I a specialist in that building? No, I'm not, but I have sold a bunch in there, and it's still my neighborhood. And I happen to be an agent who loves to devour marketing and really throw myself into something. Yeah. But I think that there's no question that I can speak to the neighborhood more than someone else who's trying to sell that building. They don't even know that it's predominantly an older crowd in there. And for some people, the bank is too far to walk.
There was a building years ago that I did 4 out of the last 6 sales. Just not because I was farming the building, not because I got 1 listing, it got me another, it got me a third, I got me a fourth. And within like a 6-month period, I sold 4 properties in the same building where like I had the market share completely by mistake. Like I didn't wake up one day and set a plan and go like, I'm going to become this. I did a good job with one, got referred to another person. And then the next 2 people were like, hey, you sold the last 2 in the building. Can you sell ours? I'm like, yeah,
Which is what I'm trying to say. So like, it's not like you're necessarily more competent or more special or more wonderful in that building now, but now you have, so let me BC this up for you too. Cause our rules in real estate are stupid because I know
you keep using these terms. I don't even know what they mean.
Okay. So here's another one. Here's something else. So you're the area specialist in a neighborhood. You have 6 of the 10 listings currently in the neighborhood. cool. We want to use that guy because he's the area specialist. Guess what? In BC, you can't
You
use
can't
that
do
guy.
both sides.
You can't do both sides. So you should therefore very specifically not use the area specialist because they can't help you with your purchase.
If
And
it's
if they
their
do-
Can
listing.
someone on your team? Can someone on your team help them?
Nope.
No. Your
Nope.
brokerage?
Our brokerage, yes, we can refer them out within the brokerage. But could you imagine that business model now? So, okay, so if I have 6 of the 10 and somebody calls me, I can actually technically show them, but as soon as agency is there, which is agency is probably showing them a property that is not my listing, because that's probably where implied agency comes in pretty quickly. And then if they want to offer on one of those 4, then I can help them. But if they want to offer on one of my 6, now I got to refer them out. And they're going to be like, well, why am I being referred out to somebody else? So I really honestly think I can do easily as good of a job. I may not know that Susan lives next door. That is correct. I may not know that. I may not know Susan.
But you can find that out.
You can find that out.
If you're
And
competent, then you can do all the things.
exactly my point. So here, now, let me defend your side. I try not to go outside of my area. I really try not to. However, in my area, it's when people move to the Lower Mainland, they'll often say like, I'm looking from Ladner to Maple Ridge. And just so you're aware of kind of that's like looking from the beach or beaches, we're not quite sure yet,
We'll find out.
to Oakville.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, okay, yeah, so and what are you going to do? Have 17 different realtors working for you within that area because they're all area specialists? I don't think so. Right? So that's like the type of area. I don't have this niche thing where people are like, I want to live in this little pocket. We don't seem to really have that here. So when I'm working with somebody, I'll let them, like I had a call the other day and somebody was like, listen, the realtor I'm working with is terrible. I just fired them. We want to work with you. And I said, listen, I don't know the area. So I should refer you to somebody else because it's actually much further than I am prepared to go. And she said, I don't care. I know the area. She's like, I need somebody who can put the transaction together for me. And I was like, okay, well, fair point. That does happen. Right? And would I then not be absolutely stupid to walk away from that business where the person's like, no, I understand. I still want to use you because I know and trust you. It is more work for us. I get it.
So she wanted your negotiating prowess.
More than anything, her big complaint about the other person was that she could tell that this agent didn't know how to explain the documentation to her, the title to her, like all of these different steps. Like the agent wasn't super competent. And she's like, yeah, her office is just down the street, but she doesn't know what the heck she's talking about. Now, I will say this is also something different. Different people, real estate means different things to different people. Tom and I really have an audience through this and through our main channels on YouTube of people that are like very statistic driven and they want to know about the market and they want to know all of those things. And I think for a lot of people, that's not real estate. For a lot of people, they can be much more like your scenario. I know that this house with this paint color and this pattern and this sort of thing is not going to sell in this neighborhood. It could be the same thing at the same time, right? So I'm focusing, sitting here looking at the numbers going, okay, this house makes sense, that house makes sense. If that's not a numbers-based buyer coming in and they're an emotional-based buyer, which let's face it, probably most buyers are, they're very likely may end up selling with or buying your property because you staged it correctly, because it had the right work done, because that's what's important to them. So real estate is so vast. I mean, I think that's kind of the beauty of it is you can find someone to work with that works within your framework. It's probably why I lose most of my listings because I don't work within other people's framework.
I think here's what I'll say. 100% is a bold number. So I'll say 99.999. Shay knows the beach better than 99.999% of any other realtor. And there's a reason why that you do really well there and why you have the ability to refer out business to other areas because you are so dominant in your section. There are many realtors that are just like, I have one opportunity, or I don't pay my mortgage this month, I'll go wherever the hell you want to try to help you buy a house. So it's a totally different conversation. Shay, you know, like I'm a stats nerd. I know the top 30 real estate agents in Toronto based on transactions. You and me are on that list. And if you look at that list, Steve, 20 of them are probably neighborhood specialists. So it works. There's a reason why it works, and it's never going to change.
Let me tell you, I'm also jealous because
you want to be us.
Oh, I would love to be. I would first of all, your guys really high commission rates. I love them. We don't get that. Second of all, I would love to walk to listings. I have had the good honor of thankfully selling a fair number in my neighborhood over the years and marketing my neighborhood over the years. And when I put my briefcase satchel thing over my shoulder and I get to walk to that listing instead of getting it, like, there's just something great about it.
Have you seen that episode of
like, I would love to be able to just get up every day, work from my home office, and then walk by 4 of my listings to give them in-person personal updates about why their house isn't sold this week, as opposed to me doing it this way, where I got one listing in Chilliwack and another listing in Maple Ridge and another listing in North Delta.
All right, let's move on from this, okay?
I'll just say that the downside is you can't go to Loblaws in your PJs.
Yeah, because everyone knows you.
Yeah, I think you can. In Surrey, like, you're lucky if they're just wearing pants. So,
Shay, we have like about 10 minutes left. I don't want to keep you too long because I'm sure you're actually getting offers on your properties during this hour of conversation.
Well, Steve and I both are. We both have to go probably.
Right.
Sorry.
I actually have an offer date tonight, but my phone's off. I'll find out after this. Waterfront. Okay, so like we talk about the beaches, we talk about waterfront. Shay, that house last night that got 13 offers and probably sold $1.5 million over the asking price, although the asking price was arguably extremely low. It's very rare that someone comes up in the beach on the water looking at the boardwalk. This is a property that in this market that we're being told is the slowest market ever, there's 13 people that probably at least made an offer over $2.5 million on this property last night. What's the value? Like, it's Lake Ontario. I love it as much as everybody else. You can only swim in there a certain amount of time. We live in Toronto, but there's something about being right there that people lose their mind over.
Well, and the reality is there's just only so many of them.
Yeah.
I've sold 2 on the water. I mean, there's a road and the water. And in both cases, I got them in the media. I think one was in the Star, one was in the Globe. And one of those properties, the person who bought lived like 35, 40 minutes away, was not looking on the MLS system at EO2, the beaches, saw the article in the paper and bought it. And wasn't even considering that as a neighborhood. But when they read about the lifestyle of the story and the kids and the kayak and the zip lining and all the things that these people were living, like a cottage lifestyle across from the water, she came and purchased. And both of the properties I had, I got the cover of the Globe and Mail for the other property. And again, it was an out of area buyer. So I think that the reality is you've got Oakville where there's water and you've got the beach where there's water. There's just only so many properties. And they're not all equal, obviously. I have one coming on the water that's a semi.
Right.
The one last night was detached and it had amazing parking and didn't have much of a sustainable basement.
But still, when
someone paid $1.5 million over. And are we having a glitch?
It's a little bit, but it'll work itself out. We can still hear you fine.
Okay. And it's just because there's only so many of those spots, 100%. And again, it's the lifestyle. It's the fact that you can cross the street and sit in the water.
Yeah.
Canoe, kayak. Like we have a spot down here on the water where you can store canoes. And I think there's a 40-year waiting list to store your canoe.
For tenant, landlord, or homeowner insurance policies, go to squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show. Use the link in the description. Save $20 when you start your free quote right now.
Shay, I wanted to wrap up the conversation today. I got a few. I wrote down so many things. We could go for another hour here, but I want to be respectful of your time. I wrote down a few headlines I saw this morning that I thought were interesting. Toronto now has 4 times more pets than children under 18. So people are getting pets but not having kids. We've all, I think between the 3 of us, we have 8 children in the world right now. So we're at least doing our parts to bring a few more kids, but it's mostly just pets. And I don't know if you saw this, Shay, but there's this new article that came out that says that if your household income is below $125,000, and this is not my wording, this is what they're calling you invisible poor. That's what the new term is that they're calling people in Toronto, saying like you just can't afford a reasonable lifestyle if you don't make household income over $125,000. Because you look at that and you look at what that could get you on a mortgage, and then you look at the down payment you need. That's getting you a one bedroom condo, really.
But that's actually not true, because the people I talked to the other night and said they're going to lose money. Part of the reason I'm worried about their home is there's a detached in their neighborhood, detached 3-bedroom house for $799. I called the agent. They're having no showings. And that's in the
weird.
East End of Toronto.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm. So
it's maybe just a summer lull here, because it was doing all right. Like the beach was still, or at least your listings.
Well,
Shay,
this wasn't prime. This wasn't prime beach for sure. It's okay. East End Toronto, but not necessarily a prime neighborhood, not necessarily a prime school district.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And another thing, and maybe we'll wrap it up here.
But what I'm saying is you can get a home.
Yeah, you can get a home. Okay. Exclusive listings is something we've talked about many, many times on this podcast. When the rules changed, what we thought about it. We've had many people's different opinion on it. Shay, when you sold your house, you put it on the MLS, on the market. What's your 2025 view on a house going up for sale? Is there a real argument to be made to a seller that you should not put it on MLS? Or are you saying to everybody, MLS gives you the most amount of exposure, why would you not do it?
I've probably sold 6 exclusive this year.
Oh, okay.
Or in the past 12 months, not this year.
Yep.
There is people that don't have the option of leaving their home and staging. That maybe they don't have a place to go. Maybe they have too many kids. Maybe they don't have the money to paint. So I think there is a place for that. The key for me, if I sell something exclusively, never will I be the only agent who has shown the property.
Right.
So what I have a real problem with our new rules is that, did you realize you can put a sold sign? So we can't tantalize the consumer with a for sale sign unless we're 3 days from MLS.
Huh.
But you know what we can do? We can put a sold sign and say, screw you, you never got in, but now it's sold. That makes me crazy. So I just saw a sign in my neighborhood, a sold sign. I messaged the agent, hey, did you double end that? What did it go for? He said, I sure did. And he told me the price. So that sold sign, I think, is so insulting to the consumer because they didn't have an opportunity. And I didn't know about it. I sell a lot of houses in this neighborhood. So I have no issue with exclusive as long as there is exposure.
Right.
The house I have coming on the water, they don't want to put it on MLS.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They want me to call the 13 offers from last night and try to drive the activity. They don't want to stage it. They don't want to move out. They don't want to do any of that stuff. But I would never just bring my buyer in and say, let's just wrap this up. Mm-hmm. So that's the key thing to me with an exclusive. I think my job always, exclusive or not, is to expose a property and to get a slice of the marketplace to tell you what your house is worth.
Well, you could also
argue, Steve?
No, let's go back to the local thing, though. A local realtor would be calling the other realtors in the area when exclusive sell and saying, what did that sell for? And they would have that intel versus someone that didn't know the market that was just coming in with a buyer.
And that brings us back to the comp story. That house is not a comp because no one knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So We don't need to argue.
So the area specialist does.
We don't need to argue about this because the Competition Bureau's arguing the case for us just fine. So Korea is about to get smashed by the Competition Bureau. I'll let you know the Competition Bureau does not often lose. And I could have told them this was coming from, well, I did tell them this was coming from a mile away when they introduced the exclusive listing rule. So it'll change. We'll go back to being able to, heaven forbid, put a sign in the yard and not use the MLS if the seller decides to. Because the seller should have the ability to sell their home the way they want, not just the one that keeps the real estate industry propped up, which is
agreed.
Which is what the problem really was. I mean, think about it. If you've got a house on the water, in the beach, or the beaches, whichever one it is, you are probably someone who may or may not want your entire life spread across the MLS, and it is not someone's, it is not the general public's right to have the information over your property. So if you want to go, if you're a NHL player, what's the NHL guy you guys got? You guys don't have Connor McDavid, right? You got the other one.
We have Austin Matthews. Yeah.
Okay, so you got Austin Matthews, and he lives in one of these places. He doesn't want his name on there.
Right.
Right? So guess what? You should have the right to not do that. And you don't even have to be an NHL star for that to happen. You could just be a really, really rich person that doesn't want
or you can be someone who's getting a divorce or who's super private or who's...
I had a lady who had massive anxiety problems. Mm-hmm. And like pills were involved, you name it. Like she was not in a good place. And we had her place ready to go on the MLS. She's like, I just cannot imagine having people in my home. Is there any other way we can do it? Now, this was back when we could advertise it. So we did not put a sign in the yard, but we did blast out all sorts of exclusive advertisements. And a guy said, listen, my guy wants to buy in that area. He's a qualified buyer. We'll even write the offer subject to viewing, which made her very appreciative. It was an accepted offer prior to him coming in. And he saw the property. He was like, yep, this works for me. Thank you very much. I'll remove my condition now. It worked.
Shay,
a seller should have control.
You think?
I got 3 final questions for you. Okay, rapid fire. Is it the beach or is it the beaches?
The beaches.
Okay. Should real estate agents have their face on their for sale sign?
No.
Not if it's my face.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on the face, I guess. South of Queen in the beaches, is this elusive? Well, if you live south of Queen, the property values go up because you're closer to the water. Is there an actual math equation on the same house north of Queen versus the same house south of Queen on how much more it is worth if it is south of Queen?
No.
Okay. But they do sell for more, mostly.
South of Queen sells for more, for sure. But I also think there's a difference. All streets aren't equal south of Queen.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then, final question, because I find this interesting. There is, I have friends that say, like, we're going to the beaches this weekend. Then they go down to, like, Woodbine Beach, because that's, like, the big public area. And then the people that would live in the area, like you, would say, like, oh, no, you'd actually want to go a lot more further east where it gets quiet in the dog park part of the beaches or the quiet part of the beaches. Is there a line in the zone of the beaches where it becomes, like, more quiet, calm beaches versus more traffic on Queen Street beaches? Do you know what I'm saying? Is there a street where that changes?
I don't think so anymore, because the furthest east is actually where the dog park is. So I feel like it's actually become busier. But it is definitely a thing, because one of my pals is Marianne Miles, who's been on your podcast before, and she lives in the West Beach. I live in the East Beach.
Is that how what we call it? Is there West Beach?
No, nobody calls it that. But I would say that some agents call, Monroe Park or Balsam like Whitby. They're like, oh, no, they won't go there. No, they won't go there. It's way too far east.
Okay, this is a final in the weeds question. Steve will have no idea what I'm talking about here.
Hang on, I just want to ask one thing. Is there one beach or is there many different beaches?
The beach goes all along the beaches, but they all have different zones and names.
You're not making this easier. Is there like bays or something? Is there like...
No, it's more designated by streets. Some zones have way better trees, wider streets.
Sounds like it's one beach to me.
All right, Shay, final final, yeah, we'll get Steve to the area. Final question is, when you pass Vic Park going east, something changes. And now on Google Maps, you are in Scarborough, not Toronto. Fallingbrook, which is a beautiful street with amazing homes, is technically in Scarborough. Does that change taxes, property values, because you're not technically in Toronto anymore on your... I mean, you're in Toronto, but you know what I mean? Like, it's the Scarborough part of Toronto.
Things change when you pass Victoria Park. You go from being EO2 to EO6.
Mm-hmm.
Some very risky agents will list a property in EO6 as EO2 just for one day.
Got it.
To get the exposure.
But I would assume people that live on Fallingbrook, if someone says, where do you live? They go, I live in the beaches. They probably wouldn't say like, oh, I live in Scarborough. Because it's right there. 100%. It's the same. Right.
Yes. Just like the upper beach. I had someone say to me the other day, oh, I didn't really grow up in the beach. It was like the upper beach. It was north of Gerard. I was like, that's the beaches. Like, you live in the beach.
What would you say upper beach technically is? Not MLS zone, but your own opinion of it. Is it just north of Kingston is upper beach?
No, I would say north of Gerard.
North of Gerard. Okay. Well, Steve has checked out because he has no clue what we're talking about anymore. But Shay, this was fun. Thank you so much for
super fun.
Finally, and I don't have Toronto realtors on this show that often. I really just have my buddies on, and so I appreciate you doing this. And I'll leave the viewers with one thing. Steve, I got to go on a listing pitch with Shay recently. We might be co-listing something. And it's cool to see the people that you know are successful around you. You see the numbers and stuff like that. But to sit with her and watch her, the way she conducts her business, you can tell within like a minute why you're successful. So just want to put that out there.
Well, right back at you. That's why I'm going to bring you in to co-list.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should put Shay on all of your listings right now because she's getting them sold.
It's probably not a bad idea.
Co-list.
Tom
17 condos.
Yeah, Shay, you want some bachelor condos on your...
No. I don't think I can hear anything anymore. I think we might have lost our connection.
Well, you're good. Oh, I see. Yeah, breaking up here. If there's a condo fee, yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening, Shay. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
All right.